Okay, it is 5:30, and this is the Monday, November 7th, 2022 meeting of the City of Palm Springs Architectural Review Committee. Planning Director, please do roll call.
Good evening. Member McCoy?
He was on a minute.
Here. Yes, I am here.
Member Walsh?
I am here.
Vice Chair Rotman? No, Vice Chair Rotman is not here. Member Dosey? Not present. Member Lockyer is excused tonight. And Member Payline
Here.
here. And Chair Jakeway?
Here.
We have 5 members present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And I would like to point out that Dan Thompson will be a voting and participating member tonight to fill in for some of our missing members. May we have a go ahead. May we have a report on the posting of the agenda, please?
Mr. Chair and committee members, our agenda was posted on Wednesday, November 2nd, and our meeting has been posted in accordance with state law and city policy.
Thank you. Does the committee have any revisions to the agenda? I would like to remove item number 3 from tonight's agenda. I think that their submittal just has too many mistakes in it, too many discrepancies, and things are just not complete. So I would like to remove that from the agenda and ask staff to meet with that firm to tell them what's missing. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. John Walsh, is there a second?
Second.
Second, John McCoy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Since this is a public meeting, audience members are permitted to comment on any issue that is within this committee's purview. Comments on an item appearing on today's agenda are made at the time that that item is presented. If you would like to speak on an item not on today's agenda, you may speak now. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. If there's anybody in the waiting room who wants to speak, please identify yourself. Okay, I think we're going to move along then. First item is the minutes of the last meeting, the meeting of September 19th, 2022. Are there any revisions to the minutes of that meeting? Do we have a motion to accept?
Motion to accept.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm going to say John Walsh was first, John McCoy was second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We will move on to the consent agenda. Well, we did just talk about approving the minutes, but I want to also put item number 2, O2 architecture for major architectural application, that would be on the consent agenda too. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Thank you, Dan Thompson. A second?
A second.
Second by John McCoy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion approved. And I would like to congratulate Lance on a great project. It's just a very little special thing. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 4. Studio AR&D Architects on behalf of Rock Palm LLC for major architectural application to construct a 5,353 square foot single family residence on hillside property located at 2305 Winter Sun Drive. Could we have a staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen now. Thank you. Good evening. Sorry, I'm having a problem. All right, the proposed project is a new single-family residence on lot 10 within the Desert Palisades community. And the size of the lot is 29,482 square feet, and the proposed residence is 5,353 square feet. This is equivalent to 18.2% lot coverage. And the project proposes a maximum building height of 18 feet. And this is a project site, which is located on the Winter Sun Drive. And it's a little bit difficult to see, but the lots number 8 and 9 that are immediately adjacent to the project site, as well as lots number 5 and 6 located on the north side of the Winter Sun Drive, directly in front of the project site, have been approved for the construction of a new single-family residences. And these are the images of the project site and its surrounding area. As you see, there are a lot of boulders, very undeveloped, and the site is surrounded by the existing natural landscape. And this is the project site topography. The site's topography slopes down from its northwest corner to southeast corner, with elevation difference of approximately 14 feet. And as you see here in the image on the left side at the bottom, the path of drainage flow actually goes across the property in the front portion. And this is a proposed design. The project proposes a driveway approach at the northeast corner, as well as a pedestrian entryway on the Winter Sun Drive. Approaching from the Winter Sun Drive, the proposed residence expands in a U-shaped orientation into west and east wings, with an outdoor living area at the center, looking towards the swimming pool and petanque court. The project proposes ground-mounted solar panels in the rear yard, and guest parking spaces on the Winter Sun Drive. There are actually 2 guest parking spaces proposed. Just so that you are aware, this project has been approved by the HOA. This is a primary elevation of the proposed residence. The project proposes a mix of materials such as vertical wood siding, metal eave, blackened steel, and natural stone wall, and a large expansive grazing area. And this is a south elevation which faces the pool. The design is characterized by a prominent roof overhangs for solar control and a strong horizontal line of the metal eave. And this is the east elevation. The project proposes a side-facing garage opening. And as you see here, the proposed project incorporates a stepping design. So the primary residence is located at the higher elevation, and the garage elevation is slightly lower, followed by the bedroom. And this is the west elevation. Again, the use of identical construction materials are proposed. Vertical wood siding, stucco wall, metal eave. And these are the sections of the proposed residence. Residence steps down from the primary residence towards the garage. Excuse me, I think I might have missed it, or it's the next page. Sorry. The proposed building height is 18 feet, and it's within the maximum building height that's permitted. And the maximum building height that's permitted for this project is shown in the dotted line. Again, this is a section drawing. The residence steps down as it moves towards the rear of the property. And this is the building elevation that's taking on from the west side, just to show the massing of the building, and the center portion where the tree is shown, applicants proposing a glazing area. And And again, additional sections just to show the relationship in terms of elevation. The primary elevation is measured at 931 feet. And the garage is actually going to be located at the lower area, and the elevation is measured at 296 feet. And the section at the bottom shows the bedroom. The bedroom is actually located at the further down, and the elevation is measured at 921 feet. And as I mentioned, the applicant is proposing stepping design with a maximum building height of 18 feet. The project utilizes this elevation difference and accommodate a large grazing area to take advantage of the view. And here's a list of materials that are proposed for the project: stone wall, wood siding, concrete, metal, the stucco, wood decking, stone paver, bracken steel, concrete hardscape, and the black window and door frame. And these are the additional renderings of the proposed residence. Again, the massing of the building is broken up. It utilizes the site's topography. Stepping design is a mix of a horizontal and the vertical lines. Prominent roof overhangs for solar control. And applicant is proposing a screening by the pedestrian entry area. As I mentioned, the garage opening will be facing the side yard instead of the street. And this is a proposed roof plan. The applicant is proposing a portion of the roof to be a rooftop garden with drought tolerant plant materials. And this is limited to the area where the bedroom number 4 is located. As Steph mentioned earlier, the project proposes a guest parking on the Winter Sun Drive. And the specific plan does not explicitly allow or prohibit guest parking. However, the specific plan does encourage design that minimize the visual impact of parking. And there's a language in there which states parking shall be screened to the degree possible from the street and adjacent home sites. And even the applicant's proposing these parking areas to be utilized for guest parking, there's no mechanism to monitor the use. In other words, if the property owner has a guest who's going to be staying at the residence indefinitely, then the vehicles can park there. And staff is concerned that the approval of this guest parking may set a precedence for a future development pattern for the community. And then also finds that it may not fully align with the intent of the specific plans design guidelines. So with all information presented, staff finds that the project conforms with the development standards, except for the front yard fence height. The project proposes a 6 feet, whereas the specific plan limits the height to 5 feet. And then also there's no information of a pool enclosure provided at this moment. The project also generally meets the required findings for the architectural and hillside review criteria, except for the guest parking, the placement of boulders in the non-build buffer, specifically east side yard. As well as the exterior lighting plan shows wire arteries that are actually projecting into the east and the west side non-build buffers. And then also staff has a concern for the visibility of the trash enclosure as it's being close to the street. However, staff finds that the project is in conformance with applicable regulations and guidelines if the conditions are implemented. And the implementation of the conditions of approval will not alter the nature of the project or the character of the proposed design. And with these findings, staff is recommending that ARC adopt a resolution and approve the project subject to conditions of approval. And these conditions of approval include, but are not limited to, the following. The removal of the guest parking along Winter Sun Drive, and a pool enclosure to be provided for building code, and relocate the trash enclosure further towards the south, or enhance the area's landscape design to provide a better screening, and the front yard fence height to be reduced to 5 feet, and there shall be no encroachment of outdoor lighting fixtures and landscaping materials into the non-built buffer areas. This concludes the staff presentation, and the applicant is here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody on the committee have questions of staff?
Chairman, I
John
do.
Walsh, John.
Noriko, just a couple questions for you. Are there, to your knowledge, are there any other developed sites in this area that have been allowed to have parking, guest parking?
Not to my knowledge. As a part of preparing the staff report, I did review the proposed development plans for the lots that are immediately adjacent to the site.
Right.
But I did not really see guest parking. And then also I spoke to my colleagues about it, but there was no indication that there has been any project that proposed guest parking.
Okay, thank you. And then another question there. I take it that the graphics don't have any pool fencing, and nothing has been submitted for that at all?
Correct. Based on the submitted site plan, yes, the pool enclosure is not indicated.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you, Noriko.
you're welcome.
Noriko, kind of related to John's question. Is there street parking allowed in this development, or is it all fire lanes?
I think according to the applicant, the HOA prohibits a street parking. The Desert Pines specific plan indicates that when the community was initially developed, that took into, or I should say, considered street parking. Based on my communication with the engineering department, though, they did not think the street is actually wide enough to accommodate guest parking.
Thank you. Another question, do we need to also be approving an AMM for the roof overhang at the entry and the solid column at the entry that intrude into the front yard setback?
Actually, AMM approval is not necessary. So the specific plan refers to the zoning code for minor architectural projection. And based on what's being presented here, it's actually meets those conditions, meaning
Okay.
that no special entitlement is required.
Great, thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, it's now time for the applicant to give us a presentation on the project. You have 10 minutes to present. Please give us your name.
Sorry, guys, just trying to turn on my camera. Can't find it. Hello.
And Nick,
Hi, I'm Nick LaFaro from Studio ARD Architects, representing the owners, Eric and Naomi Tele, for their proposed home on Lot 10 in Desert Palisades. So I want to start off by discussing some of these issues and recommendations from staff. So item 1, the project proposes off-street guest parking on Winter Sun Drive. What we found when looking through the HOA guidelines is that they strictly prohibit street parking. So our attempt to get some temporary guest parking, if I can share screen. By the way, this is not meant for long-term guest parking. We've actually located some more long-term guest parking down in this area, this little hammerhead that we have in the driveway. But our attempt at getting some temporary guest parking was there's an existing 8-foot utility right of way that's composed of a red DG, decomposed granite. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to use that same material and just kind of carve out a little bit more in our property for it. And then we were going to landscape and kind of blend that in a bit more. If that's an issue and the committee would like us to remove that from the plans, we've discussed with the clients and we are okay to remove that. But that was our intent, just so we all know. Item 2 for the pool enclosure, we actually thought we weren't going to need a pool enclosure on this one because we're providing a pool cover that's going to be concealed and retract underneath the pool coping on the western side of the pool here. But I was on the phone with Noriko and Alberto, the building inspector, and they informed me that that's kind of a secondary and that we do need a primary permanent pool enclosure structure. So we're happy to design that and work with Noriko and the city to make that nice looking, like we've proposed on some of our other Desert Palisades projects. Item 3, trash enclosures closely located to the front property line with limited landscape screening. Our intent here is, well, yes, we're going to screen it more. We want to keep the trash enclosure where it is because we have this main feature kind of 1.5-story glass wall here. And we don't want the trash enclosure to impede on it, nor do we want clients and guests to have to stare at it. So we're gonna screen from the street more, no problem. Item number 4, front yard fences exceed the maximum allowable fence height of 5 feet. Again, our intent here, I believe this area here is where we are exceeding 5 feet. We're calling out finished grade at 934 and our top of fence at 940. So this lot, all of the lots that are situated kind of south of the streets in Desert Palisades, they're kind of in a pit and you're kind of looking down at them. So our intent here is to help screen the front entry and to help screen the office and the powder room. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that our fences are no taller than 5 feet from our finished grade. So we're going to use boulders. We're going to relocate on-site boulders to help raise that grade and naturalize it. So these fences from the street will only read as 5 feet high. So that goes for this fence in front of the entry and this fence in front of the great room. The other items, item 5 and item 6, we were showing some landscape lighting, wiring, and some boulders in the no-build buffer areas. So we're going to remove those from the buffer areas, no problem. But overall, this is a very site-specific project that we've worked closely with the clients on. It's a split level. It's not a 2-story, it's a split level home with the garage kind of at the medium level, the great room at the highest level, and the guest bedrooms at the lower level. There was a concern from the clients from the beginning, like they loved the split level, but we didn't want to block the views towards the southeast. Nor did we want to stare at a lot of roof penetrations or roof material. So as Noriko pointed out, we are incorporating a landscape garden above this lower split level. I'm not sure how much more time I have, but I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
Committee, any questions for the applicant?
I have a question.
Before we do that, I just want to point out that Robert Rotman has joined us. Dan?
Hey, Nick, how are you?
Hey, Dan.
How do you access that roof to maintenance that garden?
Yeah. let me see. You kind of have to hop over it. I'm gonna share screen again. I'm gonna go into the 3D model. So from this side, you can see it's about 4'6" high. We do have a skylight. We're probably gonna need to cut that sky. Oh no, we don't have a skylight on this side. So one can hop over, Dan, and maintenance on top of that roof.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and as a safety requirement, we have a parapet that goes around the entirety of it, and that will be at a 3'6" high railing level, so people can't fall over.
Anything else, Dan?
No, good, thank you.
Nick, just to follow up from Dan's question, it appears then that there's no intention that the homeowners or their guests would be able to use that roof garden. It's just there so that you're not looking at membrane roofing.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Mhm.
Did I see someone had a question? Robert? Robert, you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep, thank you.
Thanks. Couple questions. So your comment about the trash location and the view out of the windows, I guess it's at the stairwell. But when you look out that stairwell, you're looking at the condenser units right next to the trash unit. So I mean, that really seems like a weak argument in terms of how you screen it and where it gets located. And the other thing is, you know, you did another project, and I think it was on City View, and it was this, the pool was exposed on the street side. And I know I've been up there, and the solution for the pool fencing, well, it looks like a temporary, I mean, it really looks hokey. And it's kind of shocking that if one of your projects, you know, did that. So I think when you're doing the design for the pool fencing, that we kind of know better what it is.
Yes, I completely agree. That was our first project, lot 50 up there for the pool fencing, where none had been required or designed, and the homeowners ended up kind of temporarily putting that up. We've since come up with more elaborate designs for projects that we've presented. Again, on this one, we didn't think we needed it because of the pool cover. So yep, we're happy to work on a permanent solution for that.
Great, thank you.
Nick, could you give us a bit of a clarification about these steel fences? I know you're going to lower the one in the front setback. The fence that's around the garden outside of the dining room and living room that is back within the buildable area. The way I'm reading it, portions of that are large boulders, and then there's a section that's steel, and then more boulders, and then steel. Am I interpreting that correctly?
You are interpreting that correctly. We've got some big boulders out there, so we might not get these 6-foot high boulders, but the main purpose of the placement of the screening, the metal screening, is, as you can see, they're kind of in line with the multi-slide off of the dining room, and we kind of extended them past a bit just for some added privacy. And we have those set at 6 feet height because we are within our setbacks.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, thank you. Now it's time for public comments. If there's anybody in the audience who would like to make comments on this project, please identify yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chair, no one has spoken up and signed up in advance to speak, and I see no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Let's move ahead. Committee discussion on the project. John Walsh.
I'll start, Mr. Chairman. I just, one of the key things, and it caught my attention in the staff report, because it has impact not just on this project, but on other developments up there, is the issue of the guest parking. And as I think back, we've seen other projects up there, and I've always kind of wondered how you approach the house in a vehicle, and you kind of get the feeling you sort of slide up against the grade there and get out of your car. This is the type of thing I think that tackles it effectively. It's an intended guest parking niche. And I would be kind of baffled why the HOA, if I understand correctly, wouldn't support that, because I think to kind of manage it and address it kind of puts you ahead of the game. So, you know, if that is something that that they can do, I would certainly support it. Couple other things. Yes, I think the pool fencing ends, because of the simplicity of the house, the pool fencing is a kind of a huge element in terms of how it successfully or not so successfully integrates. And I just think that that would be something that needs to be looked at clearly, developed and looked at by staff. Let's see, pool fencing. The roof garden, I'm kind of confused about. It's roof garden to me means there's sod, there's load, things are growing up there. But the rendering seems to indicate that it's kind of a rock garden, albeit lovely, but it's different than the title of it kind of announces itself to be. And then the last thing I would just share is that the solar shading where it happens is effective, but as I look at the west and the south elevations, it's kind of hit and miss. And those are huge sheets of glass. And I think it sort of forces you to end up being very dependent on an interior solar shading solution, roll-up shade or whatever. It would be nice to perhaps take a look at that again and see if some exterior fins of some sort more could consistently address it and in all areas. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Other comments? Well, I would agree totally with John's comments about the parking, especially the way Nick described it as being kind of a free-formed, natural shape to that parking bay. I think that makes a lot of sense. My biggest question is this Zen garden or roof garden. If there's no way to access it, do you really need to have a guardrail on all four sides? I think by having the rail on all four sides, it makes it seem like an enclosed little hole or kind of a, I think it's odd, but if you're not going to be able to get into it, couldn't you remove the guardrail that you have on the south and on the west so that it becomes a little freer, a little more open? But other than that, I think it's a really nice project.
Thank you. If I may, Tom,
Sure.
the guardrail, so the intent of this garden is to be more of a sculptural boulder rock garden. They have two young kids, and these kids, they know we're gonna try and jump on things and jump off.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that was a request from the homeowners that we continue a guardrail around there.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a
Mr.
motion.
Walsh, John?
To approve with the following conditions. Submittal to planning of the guard rail, the necessary fencing around the pool. What else did we have?
Parking?
To allow parking. So I would remove it from the condition.
Right.
And that might be it unless somebody else has something.
Any other comments? Do we have a second?
Robert has something.
Well, I was just going to say, there was more. We should look at the staff report recommendations again. Just trying to pull them up and just see what the other issues were, just to remind ourselves.
Yes.
Hold on a minute.
Trash enclosure screening.
Right. Okay.
Front yard fence, allowable height 5 feet. Boulders and wires in the buffer areas.
Yeah, so I think we should include some of those in our conditions of approval.
Okay. So we would drop the condition of removal of parking. Pool enclosure stays in. Number 3, the trash enclosures. Move further toward the south.
Or he said that they would landscape.
Yeah, the additional landscaping buffer.
Okay, which would work. That would be fine.
Okay.
Fences reduced to 5 feet. That stays in. And no encroachment of outdoor lighting fixtures and landscaping materials into the non-build buffer areas.
Okay, that pretty much covers it, I think. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Robert Rotman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Nice project, Nick.
Thank you.
Good one.
Okay, do we have any, that's the end of our agenda. Do any committee members have any comments they want to make on anything in general? Chris, Planning Director, any comments from the staff?
Just one comment. So the city council at its recent meeting, had a conversation about allowing boards and committees to resume in-person meetings. It is an option. So we are looking at that with IT and just kind of internally what the logistics of that would look like. We obviously have a goal of preserving, access to the widest sort of breadth of participants possible. So I think that our preference would be to maintain a hybrid option should the committee wish to resume in-person meetings. So we have some technical sort of challenges to work through on that. I think we have those under control, and we'll have a plan for that in the coming weeks. I would say the earliest that we would look to resume in-person meetings would be for the ARC's January meetings. So I'm going to put this out there, perhaps for a discussion item at our next meeting in December, to see if the committee wants to sort of make a resolution or a decision on whether they want to resume in-person meetings here at City Hall, or whether this online format with Zoom is working just fine. In the meantime, one of the questions that we have is, I know there were certain exceptions or accommodations made under the Brown Act to allow obviously remote meetings and to allow for some committee members to be remote, rather than all of them, rather than all in person to meet quorum. We just need to work with the city attorney to get answers to how that would work if we are resuming in-person meetings, whether it would mean that all the committee members need to be present, or whether you yourselves could also be hybrid. So those are the kinds of questions that we're working through. And again, I can give a fuller update at our December 5th meeting. And then the committee can make a determination as to how you want to proceed in 2023. That's the only update that I have.
Chris, as part of that same discussion, when we met with the city council I guess sometime in the summer, just all the commissions met, there was a discussion that some committees could move their meetings back to afternoon meetings. And our group decided we would like to do that, and we can still poll our committee next week, our next meeting. But I think if you can approach that with the council, that would be beneficial for us also.
All right, thank you for that context. I'm not aware that that conversation came up at the city council meeting a week or two ago, but I will certainly check in with folks here.
Okay. Any other committee comments? Okay, thank you all. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Well.